Good evening, and that was a really scintillating panel discussion which preceded this. But I can promise you, with the galaxy of women leaders who are there in this particular one, we will not be far behind for sure. And discussing this very important topic of womenomics and how women can power the 5 trillion dream, um, and the ambition which India has as it marches towards the 100th year of independence, as I said in my earlier inaugural address. I think we will discuss several important areas. Among them, the reasons why women can, women have not yet played that kind of important part as yet, and how it is changing over the last few years in particular, and what achievers like the ones we have with us this evening can do to make that narrative different and much, much more positive for India. Today, in fact, in the morning, Ashima will bear me out. We had the monetary policy, and the governor, of course, I will not ask you, don't worry, Ashima, I know what you want to say. We will not ask her about what transpired there. But the fact of the matter is that the governor was bullish about India's growth prospects. They've talked about a 7% growth for this current fiscal. And what we are going to look at is the 5 trillion dream. Niti Aayog, for instance, has also talked about not just development, not just growth, but women-led growth. And the Prime Minister has also emphasized on that. So, Ashima, let me start with you. What are the areas you think where women can really power this growth ambition of India's?
Yes, I think first of all, Indian women's labor force participation is one of the lowest in the world. It's about 22%. So if you think of more women coming into the labor force, obviously, and working, it could lead to a tremendous rise in our GDP and help us reach that 5 trillion goal much faster. And I think another reason women's possible contribution is in the limelight these days is that the Nobel Prize, went to an economist who had studied women's labor participation in the US, and she postulated this U curve, that initially during the period when manufacturing was dominant in the US, then women's participation went down. As services went up, it really increased. So in India, a lot of our growth, as we saw in the last panel, is coming from women entrepreneurs in the digital economy. And the digital economy, moreover, helps women work from home. We saw that in the COVID pandemic also, which helps them overcome certain restrictions. And the third very important factor, I think, is social belief in women and families supporting their working and what they can do. And here we are seeing a major transformation in India. Because you go into a small city, you will see that Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, and you see much more families. You have these girls coming from small places who are winning medals in sports, and the realization that women can do, and they need to be educated because you need to have those skills first. So educate them, let them go out, let them work, let them develop in whatever direction, whatever their interests are. And I think that there can be a lot that they can do, and that can raise our GDP. Yeah.
Anupriya, in your sector, we do find good women representation. But how do you think overall in the economy, more and more, we talk about women participation needing to be increased much beyond what there is to power this growth. What do you think needs to be done? Where is it really not happening? What is the story, and how do you think we can power that?
I'll just set a context and add to what Ashima said, and then I'll come to our industry. So it is true that participation of women in the Indian workforce is extremely low if you compare. We are today the 5th largest economy, hoping to go to 3rd largest. But if we compare ourselves to any of the top economies, be it US, UK, Japan, China, Germany, the fact of the matter is that we are way behind in terms of women participation, and she mentioned it was 22%. One of the things that, one of the positive developments which has happened in recent times is that the total fertility rate has come down. So it stands at about 2.1 now. Some decades back, it was like an average woman would have like 6+ children, or at least so the statistics said. Now that's a very good indicator that possibly, and also the ratio of dependence has come down. So that's a great place that we are in at this point, and there's a lot of potential. That being said, it doesn't linearly convert into, the opportunity does not convert directly into women joining the workforce. And the reason I say so, because clearly data shows that in the last many years, while there has been an 8-fold increase in the number of women participating in higher education, actually the participation of women in the workforce has gone down, which is terrible, okay?
Right.
So obviously a lot of work needs to happen, whether it is through the government or the public sector, the private sector, startups, everybody needs to participate in that. In our own way, coming to my industry, so there are 3 things that I wanted to just talk on this one. One, of course, is within our industry, if we look at, overall advertising and media, and I'll stick more to advertising, but obviously it is all part of the service sector, knowledge sector. So, I mean, within the sector, we will be employing a few million people. So that's not something that even if we have 100% women, it's not going to make that much of a difference at an overall country level. But we do our bit to do that. And so today I'm very happy to say there are very clear, pointed programs that we have in our organization. And today we have 41% women. Of course, more needs to be done, and we have focused programs for that. So we are doing that. The larger part that the industry can play and is playing is how to shape the narrative. Like Ashima said, that when you go to small towns and you see girls with changing this thing. There was a time when I was a small girl in a small town. I had no idea of the corporate world. I had no idea what I would do when I get up, when I become like sort of a young adult. I saw many ads, and I remember one particular one where there was this young lady who gets into a boardroom, and it's an interview situation, and she cracks it because of course she's applied some product. But that's okay. Like, I don't remember the product. I do actually, but let it be. The thing is that, and she cracks the interview because of the confidence which and I was a schoolgirl at that point in time, and I looked at that and I said, I want to be that girl. Right? So what the point I'm trying to say is that advertising has a lot of influence on society and shaping narratives, shaping society, shaping communities. And that is where we proactively play a role in that. So one, internally we train our people to ensure that are constantly looking every piece with modern progressive lens. We also partner with external organizations like Unstereotype Alliance, which is powered by UN Women. So when they entered India, we are in partnership with them. We run programs which ensure that everybody is sensitized in terms of how is the gender portrayal happening in advertising and media. Are we portraying women in a positive sense? Are we even portraying women over there? We are not objectifying them and things like that. So that is the second bucket. And there's work that we do, and we train our people and inspire our people to follow on those. The third is more intense programs with our clients. So at Publicis Group, we have 500 plus clients, some of the leadings one like P&G, Nestle, Dabur, Parle Products, Hero, HDFC Bank, Airtel, many such clients. And we also, to bring about change along with clients and their brands, we create positive programs on ground as well. So for example, one of the sanitary brands, we realized through research that almost 27 million girls are dropping out of school every year because of periods. And 70% plus girls are not even aware of period when it happens. So through the, obviously education program, ensuring that that chapter is taught, the chapter is brought back into the class, and all of many such sort of interventions. Another sort of measurement showed that in a year's time, 1 million more girls were able to be retained in the school. Now, it could be many other measures as well. The fact is that these 1 million girls are going to hit the workforce 10 years later, and that's going to contribute to the economy. And similarly, in other foods business, for example, and after this, in other foods business, for example, it was very interesting for us to find out that there was a backward integration with the farming chain, obviously, for the food product. And we realized that actually 71% of the farmers in a lot of these villages were women, because the men had gone to town to do work as drivers or as laborers or participate in logistics and other areas. And so it is a women workforce, which are 71% is being driven by women. So now we are partnering over there. They don't have the same rights as farmers because they are like tracked as farmers' wives and doing some work in that. So increasingly, we are working with our clients as well to ensure that we are able to make our small difference to get women to participate in the economy.
Radhika, let me come to you. I mean, a lot of young women who look at making careers, whether it is in finance or everywhere. I mean, they look up to people like you. Startups, which India is talking about, a lot of startups. It's now the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And yet, this constant refrain, even now, while things are changing, but there is this refrain of women still being discriminated against when they look at, approaching funding, women-led startups not getting enough funding. And that, is another important engine of growth. Talking about the 5 trillion ambition, if you do not have women-led startups literally taking a lot of the, the load of taking that the economy forward, how does that work? How do you see this?
So firstly, thank you. I think one, I should say, I and also Padmaja and Vibha, we represent, perhaps you talked about jobs, we represent financial services at large, and we are the industry that has been the beacon of women's leadership in this country, from a finance minister to a regulator and many banking, insurance, mutual fund heads. Well, there's a long way to go. And I start by saying that because I think before we come to startups, role modeling is a very, very powerful thing. Now, when a company like Nykaa lists on the stock exchanges, and I'm not going to talk about the company or the stock price, I can tell you many women's WhatsApp groups buzz saying, if she can do it, so can I. When you see a woman CEO like Vibha, or anyone else stand up and talk and say she's leading a 1 lakh crore market cap insurance company, if she can do it, perhaps I can. And I cannot tell you, I'm a recent mother, how many women write into me, and their primary two pieces of advice are, one, should I get married, and what kind of guy should I marry? I mean, it's not career advice, but it's actually what kind of guy. And two, how do I go about pregnancy and conceiving, because I'm really conflicted between motherhood and career. So I think this is important. Now, coming to the subject of jobs and startups, I think there are 2 points of excitement. So labor force participation is poor. All of that is known. I think we need to do both. We need to create more jobs for women in corporate India, and we need to make the women's startup story better. On the first, I think what is truly encouraged me is that we've gone from becoming a services-led country to a manufacturing-led country. Not many people know that a government reform like PLI, which has been production-linked incentive, it's created 4 lakh jobs. But 70% of them went to India's women. That is what you need to do. And that will bring more women into the formal sector. That will add the next $1 trillion of GDP. I think in terms of startups, I have seen all the stories about women struggling with funding. The mindset will change with more success. Perhaps this question alludes to some of the experience of Shark Tank India itself. But I think what's the most inspiring thing to see, and while I can't talk till the show airs, is when you see a woman founder come up and pitch, and 2 men are fighting to invest in her company. Now think of, in a world where women are denied funding, where they're worried about whether they can do it, what a 15-year-old girl sitting in small town or middle town or even city India thinks when she sees that image of 2 potential sharks fighting to give a woman funding, and that woman is rattling off questions because she knows her numbers, she knows her business, and she's just damn good. And I think that is media shaping a positive narrative about startups.
That's a great example. Actually, that's true, because the more stories like this come to the forefront, the more it will inspire women across the country. That's true. Padmaja, let me come to you. You see, last few years, 3 or 4 years, there's been a huge number of new investors coming into the market. Now, what is the kind of trend you're seeing as far as women investors are concerned? Because even now, the proportion of women who are actually able to invest a large part of their savings is quite low. How do you see that, playing out? And do you think that from savings to investment, that story will actually play out and power the growth story itself?
Thank you very much. I think Radhika would bear me out when we count the number of women who have joined the mutual fund stream in the last 2-3 years. At least I think there has been a jump of about 30 lakh women in the mutual fund industry itself.
30%, yes.
Yeah, and then there has been also a demographic study which said
but it's still not large enough. It's about 20%, if I'm not mistaken.
25 to
yeah, 25%.
I mean, I think given the situation where we are coming from, this is not this is very good. And if it feeds into a situation or a scenario where women, when we say women are working or women are investing, we still have at the back of the mind the impression that actual decisions are being taken by the men in the house. I hope and I think, I trust that this is not the case today. If we say 25% increase, that 25% are really, people, the women who decide for themselves, who can take risk by themselves, who are aware of the implications of what they are doing, and, living life on their terms. So this is what the younger generation represents, which also was discussed in the earlier panel. That said, I think there is still a lot more to do. Especially in creating awareness about financial, services, and also the risks and the responsibilities that they should take about. I think both in the capital markets and also in the banking sector, there has been a lot of investment into creating awareness about these services and what are the safeguards that have to be done, whether it is the SEBI or RBI or even all the regulated entities. So there is a lot being done, and not just in the urban areas. I think it is spreading to it is done in the rural areas, in the tier 2, tier 3. And we ourselves from NSDL, we carry out both online and offline investor awareness programs. And I'm proud to say that we have conducted specific investor awareness programs for women groups, whether it is housewives, whether it is transgenders, women or men, whatever. And then we have also done it for the street, hawkers and the self-help group women. This is because saving is considered the only way to, put away money for the future. But investing, which actually multiplies that saving with a good return, that I think is a good way forward. This should also come with other changes in the society, other changes in our mindset. And especially at a senior level, people like us who are, today sitting on this dais, I think it's a great responsibility that wherever we have women, whether as our employees or seniors, I think at home, we need to look out for them and actually give them that confidence boost. I think that's the only thing I find, not so much in the younger generation, but there are generations above.
At NSDL, you have achieved some good results over the last couple of years in terms of increasing the revenue.
Yes,
what have you done? How has that happened?
I think that specific, we don't just go and do it directly, because mostly it is done through the depository participants, which we call. We coordinate with them. We go around.
No, I'm talking about increasing the number of women in your company, going up the workforce.
In the last 2 years, the percentages, it was 17% or so when 2 years back. Today, I'm proud to say that thanks to the efforts, it is now 26%. It can be much, much better, 50 being the minimum.
And this is across all levels, right?
Yeah. Again, I think whether in banking or even today in NSDL, the numbers at the lower levels are much higher.
Yes.
And this is in banking also we found, whether it was SBI or in Indian Bank, we found that the numbers at up to the middle management somewhat decent, reasonable, but beyond that it tapers off. Various reasons. I think we have all the reasons we have been talking about. The same thing applies here. At least in NSDL, there are no transfers. In banks, there were transfers also. I think what we did is we made sure that we cannot discriminate on any gender or anything. We have to have meritocracy. So when we recruit people, the one guideline was that if there are if there is a vacancy, at least 4 or 5 people should come for the interview. And in that, at least 50% should be women. I mean, you find the candidates, you bring them for the interaction, and in that, if they don't fare well and someone fares well, that's fine. But at least get them to the table. So this, I think, helped. And then looking out for women who have dropped out of the workforce, not necessarily from NSDL, but from any financial sector, especially in the technology sector, there are lots of such women. So allowing them to work from wherever they are, giving them flexible timings, and that we have done even for men. I think what is good for women is to be done for men also, because only then that parity, both the ways works. So these are some of the measures we take.
Vibha, you've been listening very patiently as the others have spoken. Let me come to your sector in particular. The number of policies issued is also not a very healthy figure at this point to women. In 2022 data, if I'm not mistaken, is about 35% policies issued to women. What is the problem there, and how does that made to grow? How do you think that can be powered and increased as more and more policies can be issued to women?
See, this is a much more systemic issue, I think, as to why it is what it is. That it might have been 30%, now it's 35%. It's still, it should be more than 50%,
Yes.
just to reflect, the 50-50 or thereabouts mark between a male-female ratio. It needs to start from our schools, wherein both boys and girls are taught 101 of basics of finance, basics of saving, how does one get financial independence. Because the kernel of how one looks at your own savings, independence, and so on depends on understanding. Women and men, but more so women, have woefully little understanding of basic concepts of how much do I need, where do I invest. It's you transfer from your father, who is a male, to your husband, right? And it's just almost like the decision-making transfers. What Padmaja mentioned here, anecdotally, when we call women this 35%, usually the decision, unfortunately, is made by some male in the family. The telephone is immediately given to some male. Rarely does the woman take the call or want to engage or give you an appointment. Maybe younger women, maybe millennials, but that's still a fraction. It can grow, but that's not the case that it is today. In fact, I find bottom of the pyramid in a joint liability group, they show a lot more spunk because they need to show that spunk, right? So I think systemically a lot of things have to change, and I'm a strong believer that that financial knowledge, some basic knowledge, has to be made compulsory in school. Or even voluntary, but make it available. We have to begin somewhere. The other part is the entire infrastructure. When you speak with people from Delhi, ladies from Delhi today, even now say that I cannot come back by public transport back home, especially after dark. So how do you expect women to really enter the workforce shoulder to shoulder with a man if basic infrastructure still is a problem? So if you're dependent on a man, then to some extent you're also dependent, full stop, as against truly independent. So Mumbai might be different, but a lot of other places are what they are. So I think there's an ecosystem that needs to undergo change. There's nothing wrong with the raw material, as you can see in this room. But women, despite all of those handicaps, still succeed, especially in smaller towns, especially bottom of the pyramid. How do we educate our sons to respect women, to have equal opportunity, to be proud of the fact that your better half is is doing what they're doing? In fact, as we speak today at HDFC Life and all our branches, we have your Bring Your Mother-in-Law to Work Day this entire week. Right? So that the mothers-in-law see what their daughters-in-law. Of course, parents are also more than welcome because they're someone's mother-in-law, someone's parent. But doing some of this to see how, what is your daughter-in-law doing? How does she add value? How is she recognized in this workplace? And a little, thank you kind of a program for them at grassroots level. So a lot of things need to be done, but raw material is absolutely fine.
We, we are running to the end of our time here. We just wanted to get a sense from the panel, very quickly, 30 seconds each. If, I mean, to all the women out there who are listening to achievers like yourselves on this panel, if you were to give one piece of advice, and I'll start with you, Vibha, what would be the piece of advice you would give to a young, aspiring, like Anupriya said, a 15-year-old woman, girl listening to all you achievers and wanting to make a career out there?
I would say pace what you want. You can have it all. If you want everything at the same time, might be difficult. But most of us here can have it all. You can have a family, you can have a career, not just all at the same time. So be patient, pick the battles you want to fight. That's what I would say.
Padmaja?
So a small variation of the same thing. Take one step at a time. Don't look at the long picture and get scared seeing what all hurdles can come up. And don't give up before it is time to, before it is absolutely necessary to give up. Because in anticipation of trouble, we give up very quickly.
Radhika?
I'll change it a little bit. I will say find your sky and learn to fly. Find your sky means truly be ambitious, because I think women struggle a little bit on that ambition meter, and ambition can be different for every one of us sitting in this room. And then also work on yourself and progressively get better and learn to fly, knowing you will fall, stumble, have problems, but know that you have to do it for yourself. So find your sky and then learn to fly.
And then more and more sharks will be fighting for a piece of your venture. Yes. Anupriya?
Well, from my life lesson is nothing ventured, nothing gained. And it is extremely important to have curiosity at the core of everything. Coming from a small town, as I said, I didn't know what the world could be. But curiosity has brought me here. And I think a lot of that also means for women raising their hands, looking at opportunities, managing risks, getting to risk, not be too overly concerned about, what could lie around the corner. In fact, they should be looking at what is around the corner. And that, I think, has helped me, and I'm pretty sure that can help. So nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Last word from you, Ashima.
I would say, I would advise young women especially to really go and do something you're interested in apart from your family. Because as you learn, you develop, your interests grow, your life unfolds in rich, unimaginable ways. And your family benefits from it, because I have seen senior women in my family who gave up their careers, who were professionals, and as they grew older, they became bitter, over-possessive about the family. So your family benefits, and you grow, you learn, you develop, your life unfolds in rich ways. Thank you.
So wonderful pieces of advice from these 5 achievers, and this wonderful session ends. Thank you very much,
That's the best thing I learned. We're doing this mother-in-law at work there. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yes, that's a good idea.
I get my daughter-in-law to this function.
Thank you very much, and a big round of applause for this wonderful panel.